Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master from 1988, directed of course by Renny, Harlin, and yes, we are back very very soon, after the, I reviewed the third film, in this franchise, but I thought, it's been a while since I rewatched these, so I thought I'd get them up as soon as possible, and then of course move on to the fifth entry, which I'll be watching very soon, and also, until next week I've delayed yet again a few reviews, so I thought I'd focus on this today, and them reviews. That includes, unfortunately, Bond once again, but it's just the way it is. They're longer reviews that I've not really got the time to kind of do this week, that, Boogie Nights, etc. So yes, once again we are back, and there will be spoilers, in this discussion, and this won't be as long as, my other reviews, purely because, in this franchise, because I haven't got as much to say, on this one as them films. I may even have more to say about, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, or, Seven as well, than this film. Not to say that I prefer them both to this film, and, it's just a case of, it is just a one that I maybe have a little bit less to say about, in comparison to various other entries in the franchise. But, once again, of course, Freddy is back in this film, resurrected, of course, and as I said before, this could have been a really, a legendary, trilogy. This kind of the first three in this franchise, and not to say that I didn't want, more films. It is nice to see, and I'm not complaining. But it's kind of very very interesting how they kind of followed this one up. The third, because in this film, as we know, three of the main characters that were in the third entry, back, Kincaid, played by Ken Sagoes, Rodney Eastman, playing Joey, and this time around, we have Kristen once again, but she is played by Tuesday Knight, and she, it's a recasting. Patricia Arquette was not, available for this film. She declined the role, and she was doing other things, and this time they cast, yes, Tuesday Knight, and we also have other characters which we'll get to, that kind of, it's very strange, the structure of this film, and what they do with the characters, bringing them back, from the flood, and then these new characters, but of course, as we know, we don't have Freddy recast. We have Robert Englund once again, and this is such a kind of enjoyable, once again, performance. Again, this is Robert Englund, as Freddy Krueger. None of the films, he gives a bad performance in. We'll say that. He's always enjoyable. And that is just, he really committed to this role. Clearly, I believe he loved playing his character, and that shows. And he always, gave what was more than what was required for particular entries. They're very different, a lot of these ones, but they may be more campy. This one is definitely more campy, more, definitely more silly. It's kind of, it maybe goes into other franchise comparisons with this entry. For example, a very obvious one, but with the puns, in this one, and going forward, I think Freddy perhaps was used, in the way of a more comic relief. He was more of a, less of a threat, you could say, and he has these one-liners, of course, and there's some really outlandish moments in this, and it's kind of very interesting to see. I don't think this is as good, as the first three at all. It's definitely a step down, at least in my opinion. Having said that, I do, a lot of this film I really enjoy, actually, and overall, I think this is a good film, and definitely one that I enjoy, personally, and again, I went through this, the set behind me, this part here, having, the fourth and fifth entry, on this, kind of part here, and of course, yes, I will be watching the fifth again very soon, as I say, and yes, going through this, and it was great to do. I watched this again, just after, a week after watching the third again, so it's July, and yes, had a really good time with this one overall. But yes, it gets off to a really, you could say it's kind of a confused, I would say, opening act, but there are some moments, there flourishes of really, impressive, elements here at play. Confidence, throughout most of the film is there from, kind of Renny Harlin, directing this film. Although I do think this is kind of a little bit messy at times. I think clearly, there was issues with the script, during the production. Of course, Wes Craven as well was originally offering some really, I think, interesting ideas. We'll never know, but I think in the end it kind of came down to what we have. But in that sense, there was kind of a troubled production. Again, that doesn't always account for the actual film, but kind of. I feel a little bit, the sense, just watching the film, purely watching the film, that there is a bit of a kind of a mess at times in the writing department, and just the ideas, and the structure of the film. Perhaps it's very, it's unique. It's definitely different, but it does. There are some issues for me, and I think, but the open act is definitely it's got some real good moments of music as well. For example, the rock songs, pop songs as well, and also Craig Safan composing the score, and it's very. Once again, a very kind of epic and thrilling and just upbeat, you could say, score to the film, and just the general, the actual songs that are injected into this film. It's definitely, really enjoyable for me. I know a lot of people don't like this film. In fact, the rest of the films, you could say, excluding the seventh, very, very unpopular at times, especially critically. But I'm a defender of this franchise. It's definitely, I can confirm, even just Freddy's Dead, that's a very unpopular film, but there are definitely enjoyable, at least, elements to that film, and we'll get to that, what I think on that film, and, to be honest, it's been many, many years, so I can't remember a lot of that film, but, I did enjoy that one, in at least a few regards when I was younger, but, this film here, it's criticised, for even the use of music in the film, the kind of MTV, Nightmare on Elm Street, in the franchise, and personally, I love all this kind of stuff. So, I'm a big defender of the music, and in general, the rock and pop songs that are kind of injected into this. Because some would say it's maybe like a music video at times, but if it works, it works, and it actually is very, very enjoyable in that sense. I love the kind of epic moments, kind of involving particular characters. Rick as well, Rick Johnson. It's one of the main characters at first. He is essentially this, fanatic, martial arts fanatic, and you see him kind of training and just kind of messing about, you could say. And the use of music here is very, very enjoyable for me. That's my kind of thing, and I like to see that, in a comedy horror kind of film here. And yes, very enjoyable character. He is the brother of, essentially what will be, our main, kind of character, Alice Johnson, and she is a very interesting character, played by Lisa Wilcox, and she takes over, you could say, in the sense of main characters. Once we have this very bizarre, in the first 30 minutes, basically, these three, as I've said, these three kind of characters that are from the third film, they're essentially killed off, in this film. They're dispatched, and it's very, very strange, in my opinion, to bring back these characters. Very, very interesting characters in comparison to the ones in this film. The new characters, because for example, Kristen, Joey, and Kincaid, they're all some of my favourite characters in the franchise, and they were so great in the third entry, all given their own unique kind of arcs, and they're all human characters that are given a lot of dignity in that film. In this film, they're killed off, you could say, in kind of cheap ways, and to bring them back, to see Kincaid again as well, it's such an enjoyable character, and to have them kill him off in this way, and Kristen, it's just, it's kind of, it's funny moments in this, and Kristen's demise, you could say, is really, really out there. Having said that, really thinking on, these characters from the third, it's very disappointing, actually, to see them, dispatched and kind of used in this way. That's what they are, they're kind of used for an effect, and I think it also kind of slightly hurts the actual overall film, because you don't get to kind of have these other characters fully established from the get-go. It's kind of, and because these other characters who are a lot more interesting to me, and better characters, they are presented in this way. It's kind of, the other characters, you could say, are taken, they're kind of given a backseat, and then they come into play. It's interesting in some ways, and it kind of works, but in other ways, it doesn't quite work for me in the way it could have done. I think Also, the recasting, of Kristen is very, very, unfortunate for me. Let's just say, I much prefer, Patricia Arquette, her portrayal, and also, just some really strange things in the writing department. And yes, having said that, once the film, gets going with the other characters, it takes its time a little bit more to focus on them. And I think Alice, is a really, really enjoyable character. I must say that she's not one of my favourites. In comparison perhaps to the previous protagonists, she isn't as good. But I think Alice is definitely, an interesting protagonist. Her kind of final fight, I think, with Freddy, in the kind of the old church, that whole kind of, we'll get to that, but, that is very, very satisfying. And I think, throughout the film, there are definitely moments that I really get behind this character of Alice, but I think, again, the structure of the film and the overall writing, kind of diminishes the potential of, these characters. But you also have Dan in this film as well, and he is this character who essentially, Alice has these kind of feelings for, but it's kind of interesting, the character relationships in this film, how they're all kind of connected. For example, Kristen, her boyfriend Rick, and it's all kind of, he is the brother of Alice, and it's kind of, at least she has this kind of connection to a previous protagonist, Kristen, in some way. It's kind of connected, and it's kind of, it works in the sense that Freddy is after these remaining characters, and then he kind of shifts his attention to those that are kind of involved in that sense in this film. But yes, what I love about this film as well, is the locations. I love the kind of the school scenes, at times, and just the neighbourhoods. It's very charming. It has this very nostalgic feeling that I love, and of course, the kind of the great 80s music as well in this film, and just the feeling of this. It's a very charming film at times, and even though it kind of, as an entry in this franchise, it kind of diminishes or takes it takes some characters and kind of uses them, I think, in cheap ways, as kind as I can put it. I think despite that, I really get behind a lot of this film, and I think once we get to that final act, it really is quite enjoyable. I must say, very, very enjoyable stuff. In this film, of course, Freddy, as I say, is definitely more of a comic relief character. You have the, but what we do have, while we have the beach scene, that could be a bit too much. Him wearing sunglasses. Despite I did laugh at that. I do find it funny and kind of, it's cool to see. But I think the really hilarious moment that really, really works is, the whole kind of pizza, the meatballs and him, the kind of reaction there. That is hilarious. One of the all-time hilarious moments in the franchise, and the kind of remark there. It really is, it's insane. It really is. It's so outlandish, but it is entertaining, and moments like that. I also think this is definitely a kind of very creative films at times, with the ideas in terms of the imagery, the actual dream sequences. They're very, very, some of them are a bit too much, but others are really, really very, very unique and engaging, and just so fantastical. Once again, it is a very at times effective fantasy horror, and this is of course a horror slasher, but it is a fantasy film like the third, and of course these ones that lean into the more the fantasy genre, you could say, and this one, it really does. It definitely has some interesting moments. I love the kind of the final act, or just before that as well. We have these sequences where the characters, Alice as well, is going through this town. She's going through this kind of scenario, and she's stuck in this, you could say, in this film, and going on loop, and that's a really interesting moment. I think it's really, really good writing, and really well pulled off. The editing there, that's one of the highlight kind of sequences of the film, and it really adds for some enjoyable kind of surprising moments, and definitely very creative at times. Other cases of the film, other parts of the film, you could say, it could have been more. It could have been kind of more interesting, and more original, you could say. Again, taking some of the characters. The thing that really does kind of take the film is taking them characters from the third film, and what they do with them characters. Just it does definitely disappoint me. But having said that, there are definitely some interesting kind of kills in this film. Just in general, I think the way the film is shot, it's very enjoyable, kinetic. This film, the editing, once again, very, very solid. Again, this is it may be a step down from the third film and the previous films in pretty much every regard, but I don't think this is a bad film, like many would say. I personally do defend this film. I think it has some really some epic moments as well. I think Rick is an epic character. Alice is an epic character. I really get behind the physicality and stuff. The final act, really I love particular moments, and it's kind of really epic when she gears up for the final showdown. Once again, the final showdown, with Freddy. He returns, of course. But as I say, it is Freddy is kind of menacing, in a way, in this film, and it is brutal moments, throughout. I think, definitely more of a comic relief character, and it's more of a comedy. And this, you could say, maybe is a kind of a thing that happens in the next entries in the franchise. Having said that, I think 5 is very, very dark in comparison to this film. We'll get to 5, but Freddy's Dead, once again, it is more of a kind of a comedy, outlandish film than more of a horror, or definitely more of a disturbing piece of cinema, like maybe the first and perhaps the third is. They are really affecting films. They're so affecting, but this one and going forward, some of these ones are more of the kind of you don't really get. Perhaps at least I don't get too disturbed. It is more, yes, the imagery is there, the surrealist imagery once again in this film, very interesting. Involving the insects as well there, with the kind of the character, of course, but there is some yes, there is some affecting imagery, but it isn't as much of the kind of the darker tone. This one it isn't as affecting as an overall piece. I think it's definitely more of a comedy, and that's fine. But I think, yes, in comparison to the previous 3 entries, it is a step down. But having said that, I do really like a lot of this film. After that first act, although it has some interesting moments, that first act, and I think. Thinking as well, Kristen, the way she pulls, Joey and Kincaid, into her dream there, that's really epic and just, a really cool moment there. But it would have been nice to have kind of seen the characters, the existing characters from the third film to be given more dignified ends, at least if they were going to get rid of them in this film. I think it could have been done in a different way. That's just my opinion, and that's my respect for them characters and my love for them characters from the third film. And I think they definitely deserved better exits, at least in my opinion as a fan of that film. But this film, I think it's a good one. I think it's an effective fantasy slasher film. It's very cool, this film. It's got some really cool moments in the score. The actual songs that are injected into this film, and I think the editing is definitely really, really fun. It makes it a fun experience. This very kinetic, and it has a nice flow to it. And again, if you can get past the structure change, of this film, very, very strange in what it's doing. With the kind of carrying on, and then completely basically getting rid of them characters, and not really really kind of taking that forward throughout the rest of the film. They are just literally chopped off in that sense. And we do have at least we have Alice, who is a very enjoyable, in my opinion, protagonist. I do like Rick quite a bit, and we have some other interesting characters in the film, and yes, once again, Freddy is very, very enjoyable, and he is funny, and he is in his own way menacing in this film. It's definitely very unique, this entry, and in some regards maybe not so much, but in the end, the result is definitely an effective film. It is quite an enjoyable one for me. I do really enjoy this film. I think it's it's a good film. It's not anything great, I don't feel, but well, it doesn't have to live up to the original 3 for me. At least because at least this one is an enjoyable film in its own way. It's a fun entry with some really epic moments. I think the setting as well. The sets in this film, especially the opening set once again, and that sequence there, and also the old church in that final showdown. I really love how that's kind of used, and it's very atmospheric, and surreal, and the imagery there, with Freddy's demise, that is very, very cool to see, and very, very creative once again, visually, this film. So yes, overall, definitely a solid entry. I think. Again, this one is very, very much, it's panned at times, just like the next three, kind of films. They are divisive. I think of course 7, is definitely more popular than 5 and 6. But we'll get to these films. But this one, I don't think it's as good as the first 3, but it doesn't have to be. It's a very nice film to see. It's got some really warm moments, actually, and some nice moments again with certain characters, you could say, banding together, in its own kind of unique way, and it doesn't really add anything to the mythology too much. In this one, we get more of that actually in 5, you could say, although we'll get to that one. I definitely prefer this film to 5, and yes, what we'll say is, this is definitely a film that I defend. I like this film quite a bit. I don't think it's a great film. It is a very, very much a good film, and it's definitely. I think it has its flaws. It has quite a few issues. I feel, but mainly in the writing department, and just the fact that this does some really, some things with the existing characters from the third film that I don't really agree with in that sense. But having said that, an enjoyable film, definitely a film that I can put this on and I can really watch at any point, and just, get enjoyment from this, and in the end be kind of, upbeat and uplifted by this, fairly satisfying once again final act. I will say, it is kind of. Again, in comparison to the third, thinking on how much I was really invested in this whole arc, and just before the final confrontation, it really pales. But in its own right, I think it's definitely, it's a good sequel. It's maybe slightly disappointing in comparison sequel to, because this is a legendary franchise, at least in the first 3, and but again, it's all kind of relative, I guess. But as a film, it's definitely a very enjoyable, horror slasher fantasy film, and better than a lot of them out there. So yes. Definitely a film that I personally really enjoy. And so yes, my final rating for this film is a solid 70%. This is definitely an enjoyable film. It's a film that I do, get some laughs from, as well, thinking on it, for the nurse scene, you actually see Robert Englund, without the makeup and stuff, of Freddy, he is disguised as a nurse. It's really hilarious moment. It has really, laugh out loud moments littered throughout, and some moments go too far, you could say. It's not a perfect film, this one, that's for sure, in my opinion, but it does, because it does really go outlandish at times, and sometimes it works, sometimes it's really entertaining, and, just kind of funny to see, but other times you could say it goes too far, at least in my opinion, but it is, well directed, this film. It's definitely a really interesting film in its visuals, in the score, it's definitely a really good score by Craig Safan, and just really kind of upbeat and thrilling once again, and is this in the end as well, the kind of final act is very satisfying. It's very much, it leaves you in, it leaves me in this state of, it's quite a cool film, this one, and it's very much, it's nice to see Alice kind of defeat Freddy in that way, although once again, she is back in the 5th, and essentially once again, Freddy is back. But by this point, I think we realise, that Freddy, even though they kind of kill him off at the end, he will return in some way, with these ones. So it kind of goes without saying. I think it's got that self-aware kind of feeling at times, and just throughout in general, it has that. But and I think the 70% is accurate for the overall score. It has some drawbacks. This one, there are some things that I think could have been a lot better, and kind of messy moments at times in the structure, in the actual script, and again, the acting, is definitely really, really good from Robert Englund. Once again, he's amazing in this film, and I think Lisa Wilcox is very good in this film, and a couple of the characters, of course, of course, the pre-existing characters from the third. I love them, all the actors there, but some of the characters, in this film, maybe yes, the acting, is a slight issue. Again, I have some mixed feelings. I definitely prefer, let's just say that, Patricia Arquette in her portrayal, of Kristen. But having said that, it's nothing too major in that sense. But yes, I like this film, I really do, and I think it definitely it's not one of the worst in the franchise. It's not the worst, that's for sure. So there we have it. I think that's my thoughts. What do you think of this film? It'd be very, very interesting. I've had some nice comments. Going through this franchise, it's very, very fun to kind of discuss these films. They're all different. They are all different entries, but they do fit into this in some way. This franchise, these original 7 at least, they have their own place. I may not love all of them, but I love this franchise, and once again, Freddy is back, and this time a very unique blend of different stylistic choices. The tone of this is definitely it's not exactly a perfectly consistent film, but structurally, tonally, or stylistically, maybe not even that. But overall, it's kind of it's a mashing that does entertain me, and it works. It comes together in the end, and that's what's important as well. It may start off a bit shaky in what's doing. Some of the characters, for example. But as we go through the film, I got to really, once again, get behind Alice and of course Rick as well, and Dan. They're all enjoyable characters, and yes, just very, an enjoyable film. It's a good film. I'll give it a 70. I don't think it, I'll give it more than that. I think it definitely doesn't deserve, more than that. Just at least in my experience of this film, that's kind of the accurate rating that I'll give it, and again, it's an enjoyable film, not one of the worst, and definitely, I like this more than maybe a lot of people do, and I definitely defend it. So yeah, that's my thoughts. What do you think? It'd be great to know, and I'd really recommend this, for the record to, horror fans. It's definitely very unique, and I think a lot of people, clearly a lot of people do enjoy this, but it is generally not considered, a good film at all. I personally think it's good. That's my opinion. And what do you think? It'd be great to know. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts, in the comments. And again, check out my reviews if you want on the previous entries. If you're interested in that, you've just joined my channel. I have reviewed these films as well, and I have this playlist. So yes, once again mention that, and of course join me if you want. Going through the rest of the films, starting once again, going through the 5th film, and I've not seen that in many, many years. I have some opinions on that one, but this film here, I do really like, and yes, I look forward to hearing your thoughts, and join me if you want on the next entry. But yes, also a ranking, at the end of these films, and possibly as well including Freddy vs. Jason. So yes, as always, take care, and yes, thanks for watching.